now pleased to be joined on the latest Off the Carousel series, none other than Florida State new head coach Loucks. And Luke, congrats, first of all. It's been a while since you and I have seen each other. Probably you were a lot younger last time I saw you. I will say that. You were a
Yeah,
lot younger.
younger and lighter. We both
Yes, no
gained a few
doubt about it.
pounds.
You probably 20 pounds lighter, but it happens to all of us. And just
No
wait till
question.
you get even older. Then you're not going to be able to move. Um,
Yeah.
congrats. Obviously, it's been a cool ride for you, and to come back home to Florida State where you had so much success as a player. The team had so much success. Try to get this program back on track. Take me through first the process. You've been in the NBA for a while. What was the process like when so many coaches right now, Luke, are like, I don't want to go to college. Like it's complete chaos right now in college. You're in the NBA where I know there's not a lot of stability, but still it's different. What made you want to go back to college?
Yeah, a few things. First and foremost, you said I played here, so I know what it feels like to win at Florida State. We went to four NCAA tournaments, won the AC championship. It was the great teams I played with, so I know what this place feels like when you're winning, and all those memories. My wife swam here. We're both from Florida. So there's an emotional side to it, just coming back home, being closer to family with young kids, and coming back to a place you care about. And then the career side, if you coach and you're motivated, just as a player, you always want to get to the top. And I wanted to be a head coach. I always thought that was eventually going to come in the NBA level. And I worked my way up all the way to a coordinator at the NBA level. Excuse me. And it was just the door open, and I felt like it was the right move on a lot of different levels. You mentioned the chaos of college basketball, and it's different. It's different. Don't get me wrong, it's different, but it some of that chaos we're used to at the NBA level. Guys making huge amounts of money to play basketball that they deserve. They bring in a lot of revenue. Fans show up to watch them. They don't show up to watch the coaching. And so some of that is deserved, and some of that for me is normal. Players making a lot of money, and they have egos, and they have agents, and they have people that care about them. So some of this is normal. The difference is in the NBA you deal with a lot of professionals, and at this level it could be anyone. It could be a guy's buddy negotiating a deal, and that's where hopefully eventually we get to some regulation and some stability. But it's been fun so far, man. I'm enjoying learning on the fly and building my own staff and building a roster of guys that I like and I want to coach and I want to be around. So yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it, and I'm learning every day.
One of the things I've said that I think can really and does benefit a lot of you guys who come from the league is obviously it's a different game, and the adaptability I think is different in the
Right.
right. Like a lot of college coaches kind of stick to what they do, stick to their system, and try to fit players into that system. I think in the NBA it's different. Obviously, you're looking for weaknesses, you're trying to exploit them over and over and over until somebody does something different. What's the biggest thing that you will take from the NBA from having worked, in two really good spots, Golden State and Sacramento, for, two good organizations, two really good coaches?
Yeah, a few things. Number one, Steve Kerr and Mike Brown, two of my mentors, both come from Greg Popovich, and I think there's something to be said about the way Popovich has always. First of all, his coaching tree is impressive, but it goes back beyond the X and O's and the tactics and the strategy, like you talked about, which are all important. It goes to a standard and a way of doing things in a championship way, of every day, every drill, every practice. There's an intensity and a focus to it, and also there's an enjoyment with it, right? We play a child's game, we coach a child's game, and you should enjoy it. But those things are the biggest things I'm going to take from. And Steve Kerr is much different from Mike Brown, personality wise, preparation wise, but both those guys have a seriousness with their preparation and their standard of just excellence every day, and both of them enjoy their jobs, and those are the big things in terms of style of play, of philosophy. The NBA, we're fortunate. We have massive teams of people. We have literal scientists breaking down data of the best way of doing things, the most efficient way of playing. The one thing you mentioned, and something I'm always going to try to do, is mesh my basketball philosophy with my roster, right? And sometimes my philosophy, I have some base level things that no matter who I coach will remain, right? The pace at which I want to play, the spacing, right? The ball movement, the body movement, the cutting, the togetherness, playing together, creating for each other. Those things, I don't care who is on my roster, those things will remain. But like you said, each roster is different, each player is different. They all have their strengths, all have their weaknesses. And as a coach, you have to blend that together, both offensively and defensively, and create this mesh and this marriage of, okay, this roster is going to be a little bit different than last year. Maybe some of those sets, maybe some of those early transition actions, maybe some of those late transition actions aren't going to work with this team, and we got to tweak it a little bit. And that's something in the NBA. Every single team, similar to college, you have turnover. You usually have a core of guys you try to keep together, but then you got free agents, you got mid-level guys, you got rookies that you're bringing in, and you got G League guys moving up, and all those things got to mesh together, both philosophically and just basketball-wise, to create hopefully a championship-level team. So those are the things I'm going to try to bring to Florida State. There definitely will be an NBA influence, and you've seen it around college basketball. Nate Oates has done a great job hiring NBA guys, some of which are my friends from the NBA, who have now gone on to be head coaches. And you even see it across the landscape. Coaches would come to our training camps from college in the NBA and pick our brains of like, okay, how do you do this? What's the pace? What's the spacing here? Why does this guy cut when this guy drives baseline? So, and then you see it's fun to watch. You see those things implemented in college and they work. So there are some universal things, regardless of whether it's NBA, college, FIBA, some things I really believe in that I just think it's the most efficient way to play basketball that I'll try to bring to Florida State.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today.
So Florida State goes from 76-year-old Leonard Hamilton to 35-year-old Loucks. Little different. I think it's cool, though, that, he gives it to somebody, helps give it to somebody who played for him, who knows Florida State, like you said at the outset, who has a pride in the program. Generally, I haven't been a huge fan of former NBA guys coming on. I've made that known, but you're different. And I think a lot of the NBA guys now are different because you don't have $100 million in your bank account. Let's face it, right? You wish you did, but you don't. Those guys I always felt like weren't necessarily coaching for their lives or their livelihood. It didn't matter whether Chris Mullin or Patrick Ewing, won or lost. It wasn't going to affect their livelihood. For you, this is an opportunity, obviously, for a career path, for you to do this for the next 20 plus, years. How would you explain that to me, of a guy like you and some of the other NBA, the Kevin Youngs of the world, this new kind of way of hiring that has taken shape lately in college basketball?
Yeah, Kevin's a close friend too. We worked together really briefly in Phoenix before I went to Sacramento, and to watch him take BYU, and obviously, again, he has ties to BYU. His wife's from Provo, and his family, and all that. He cares about it, But the same. What you said is absolutely correct, and that's how. In the interview process, that was the main, I wouldn't say holdup, but the main concern, right? Is there's just not a lot of guys that have come from the NBA and succeeded in college, which they're absolutely right. In a way to say there's no disrespect to any of those guys that have come down, because they all have their own circumstances that maybe we don't know about, and maybe there's other reasons besides just their coaching of why it didn't work out at those places. The one thing I would say that you touched on a little bit, and even talking with some of my mentors, like Mike Brown, I'm like, how do I answer this question? Because I can't compare myself to these former NBA guys. The biggest thing is what you said. It's your livelihood. Like I started as a paid intern making minimum wage for Golden State Warriors when I finished up playing professionally, right? And I started at the absolute bottom, and they're cranking out film, doing player development, making coffee some days, whatever was needed, I was doing, right? And from there, you just basically grow as a coach. You learn from some of the best coaches in the NBA history, like Steve Kerr, Ron Adams, all these guys, Mike Brown, Willie Green, who's now a head coach, and go down even under Mike Brown, Jordy Fernandez, all these guys that have now become head coaches. We're all the same path of we started at the absolute bottom, right? And every day it's an interview. You show up every day and you work your butt off. You prove to people that not only are you capable of coaching at a high level, but that you're here and you're going to work harder than anyone else and you're going to be smart about it. So the little things as I progressed in my career went from a video intern doing scouting and film to a player development coach working with the two ways, to a full-time player development coach, to an assistant coach, to helping run the offense with the Sacramento Kings, to becoming the defensive coordinator. And every one of those stops, I didn't look at it as a job promotion. I looked at it as an opportunity and almost an interview to prove myself at whatever that is, whatever the task is, that I'm going to do it at the absolute maximum, most efficient way possible and learn along the way. You're going to make mistakes. You're young, you're progressing, and you're in a business where it's very cutthroat. You have to produce, right? And so through all that, connect with different analytics teams, connect with, go to coaches conferences and learn from some of the best. To me, that's exciting because like I said at the beginning of this, I want to be the best at my job, right? And so every day is an opportunity to learn and not only learn, but to prove yourself that you're competent. That would be my answer to that is I don't want to compare myself to other guys coming from the NBA. But there is in terms of my coaching career, I've checked every single box outside of being a head coach, and I told
and you've grinded it out. Like you said, the difference, and I've said that to people, like it is a big difference, right? It is a big difference of, again, those guys came in, that didn't work. Now, I think a lot of people are going this route because you guys have experienced changing rosters, because as you said, you've experienced having to coach guys who are making a ton of money. It's going to be interesting to see if this works, but certainly Kevin Young has helped to get off the ground and shown that there's a success story early.
Yep, sure. And I do think that there's a level in this day and age where the roster turnover is real, that you have to build relationships, authentic like these kids, and especially when you get the professional, these grownups can smell the BS, right? So you have to build authentic relationships, number one, and you have to care about these, no matter if it's for 6 months, 9 months, or 4 years, you have to build real relationships and invest in these kids on and off the court to show them that you're eventually going to help them, both daily and long term. And that's something that KY and I talked about when I was going through the process of, I was spitting to him about like how I would recruit, right? And my whole pitch is, I know where you guys want to get to, right? You guys all want to get to the professional level and make real money. And if you don't, you're probably not good enough to play at this level, right? Let's be honest. So all of you guys want to be pros. That's where I'm coming from, right? I've run draft workouts. I've sat in the Chicago Combine. I've run interviews. I know what goes into it. So not only do I know how to get you there, I've also worked with all the guys, both the ones that have failed and the ones that have succeeded, to get to that second and third and fourth contract. So I know what you guys are trying to do. Let me and our staff that I've built and the resources we're going to have at Florida State help you get there. And there's no disrespect to this landscape. There's not too many coaches. There's probably only 3 or 4 of us that can really say that and be honest about it. Myself, Kevin Young, Ryan Pannone, who just took over Arkansas State. There's a handful of us that have come from the NBA that can honestly live that out and say, listen, the way you're working is not going to work. You're going to show up to the next level and you're going to have no idea how to play basketball. You're a good college basketball player that will never succeed let me help you. And so I think all of that, it helps with the recruiting, but it helps with the style of play. It helps with the philosophy, and it helps how you work every day.
So how involved will Leonard be now? I mean, he's 76. He doesn't have a ton of hobbies, right? That's not Leonard for the most part. He's not going out golfing every day or anything like that.
Yep.
Have you talked to him about Like any sort of role? Does he want to help out? You know, you see some of these guys now help out with fundraising, things
Yeah.
of that nature. Any idea? Will he just ride off into the sunset and come back maybe for a game here or there or what?
Oh no, he'll be around. So Leonard does have some hobbies. He just keeps them close to the vest. He loves
Okay.
gospel music. He has a record label.
I knew that.
He
Yeah.
does a lot of fundraising, a lot of charity work in town. I talk to Leonard almost every day, at minimum a few times a week, just because everything I'm running into, he's lived. He's lived for the past 50 years. He's like a second father to me. You know, he's truly one of my mentors that helps me in a lot of different ways, both in career wise and personal wise. So we have a great relationship, and that's not going to change. He's very cautious about stepping on my toes, which I'm laughing. I'm like, Coach, you're never going to step on my toes. You're welcome here every day. You can sit on our coaches meetings. You can come to practice every day. Whatever you want to do, I'm going to be supportive because I love having you around. You got for your age, you got a ton of energy, and everyone loves having you here. So he's popped in on some coaches meetings. There was a few recruits actually that the mothers were like, man, I really wish I could have met Coach Hamilton. I've heard so many great things about him.
Yep.
And so secretly I call Coach Hamilton. I'm like, hey, how quickly can you get up to the gym? He's like, why? And I explained to him, he's there in 15 minutes and he's helping me close the deal. And so I think some of those things, obviously, I can use as a tool, but most importantly, I can depend on that relationship to help guide me and help guide our staff. We have a really young, energetic, youthful staff that all bring great experience from a lot of different levels. But the fact that I think the oldest guy on our coaching staff is 46 or 47.
Yep.
And I did that purposefully so we can sweat on the court with the guys. We can teach them and show them as much as all the film. So I wanted a young staff with a lot of energy. But the reality is a guy like Coach Hamilton has so many years of experience that he can invest back in us and help us in a lot of different ways.
No, that's smart. Again, and the other thing is, you know, it's not like he's going to threaten you. You know, it's
No.
not like he's a threat at he's done. He's done. He's not coming back or anything like that. I never understand that, you know, with coaches. Like to me, it's you want to soak in as much as you can from him.
100%.
Again, it's like you got a Hall of Famer there. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, especially if he's willing to help us, and he cares not only about my success, but most
Program.
importantly about this program's success. He doesn't want to leave it in disarray. So he's been very, very helpful, and his wife Claudette's awesome too. She's already reached out to my wife and connected her with a bunch of wives in town. So it's been really good. It's been a smooth transition so far.
So NIL wise, I know you guys aren't up there with the Kentuckys or the Illinois or some of those schools right now. When you got the job, you know, the number probably looked a lot better than it does now, right? All you guys, when you got your jobs, the number has changed a little bit. Hold on. I got a guy doing something outside the rental here. Let's give it
We
about
got the
10
same thing.
seconds.
Our new school of business is being built right outside my window here. So
Yeah.
we got the same construction noise.
Literally right outside. That's the beauty of having a rental.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, again, you know, whatever that number was when you got it for NIL probably looked a little bit better 6 weeks ago than it does today. How do you manage that right now, Luke, in terms of figuring out, because you can't outbid people. That's not where you're at today. Maybe it changes over the next couple of years, but that's not where you're at right now. How did you put together this roster given some of the financial limitations that you had?
Yeah, it's a great question. First and foremost, through the process, the AD, the board, all of it, the university was very upfront about, you know, our financial situation, and how important football is, and which I totally agree. I grew up a Florida State football fan, so I want those guys to be good, and I understand the resources it takes to compete football wise at this level. So they were very honest and open, which is how I operate. I would rather just get it all on the table and then let's work. So the reality is, part of my job in this transition is, and it's why what I said earlier, I'm looking for extra hours in the day. Part of my job is to go fundraise. And I know that, you know, the money that we had is you're right. It's not what Kentucky has, and it's not what some of our competition has. And I still took the job. But part of it is to go back into the community that I was once ingrained in. And there was still a lot of relationships that I'd maintained, both with boosters, with people in the community, and people around the state. All these guys that I graduated with in business school are now running businesses in Tampa and Jacksonville and Atlanta. And part of it is go fundraise, right? And to pitch them of like, yeah, it is for NIL, but it is you're buying equity in our team in terms of now instead of just watching and clapping, you have a sense of I helped put this team together. And I think it really resonates with people that the people that really care about this university and that are financially capable of helping us. And we've had a tremendous amount of support to get a lot of money in the door in a little bit of time, and that will continue. You know, part of my job this summer and beyond, I'm gonna keep doing it. Is not only just to ask for money, but to build these relationships where people want to give money, you know, and help us in what we're building.
Hopefully you don't have to keep asking. Hopefully they
Yeah,
can give.
yeah.
Because that's got to be, I say that to coaches all the time now, Luke. Like, you guys aren't necessarily, some of you are more salesy than others. You're not. Like, that's not your nature. You're not a big sales guy.
Right.
Is it hard? Is it hard to have to all of a sudden flip the switch and be kind of a salesman and sell some guys that, again, you grew up with and now you're asking them for money? Does it take a little bit of time to get used to?
Yeah, a little bit, but you're right. I don't try to sell. You know, I go and I do. I like getting to know people. I like going to have dinners and I like talking hoops with people. And it's something I'm passionate about. And when you care about something, you believe in something, it doesn't feel salesy. And the way I always put it, and I'll continue to put it, I never ask them for a certain number. I don't ask them for, hey, I just say, hey, we need your help. And this is what I'm trying to build. And if you want to be a part of it, great. And if not, I'm still going to build these relationships. And you are always, you want to come watch a practice, you want to be around what we're doing. I'm an open book. Like you said, I got nothing to hide, you know, but I want to build this thing into a championship level basketball organization. And the reality is I'm going to need some help doing it. And if you want to help, like the train is open and it hasn't left the station yet, and please come help. And if not, I have no hard feelings. I still enjoy talking hoops for 30 minutes or an hour for a lunch or coffee or whatever it is. And that's the reality, but it's been fun. But it is just time consuming,
Yeah.
you know,
Every
it is
night,
time.
right? I mean, every night you
Every
feel
day,
like
every
you
night.
probably
Yeah,
should be having a dinner with somebody, and
that's
then
right.
your wife and kids are probably, hey, look, like, we got to see you here around here a little bit too, you know?
Yeah. No question, no question. But no, it's been good. And back to your original question in terms of team building, and then the market. What I thought I was getting into is as clear, and we all saw it in real time, taking off. You know, and it turned into a bidding war with a lot of different high level teams, and it's not just like three or four teams; it's like dozens of teams. And
Yes.
we lost out on some good players and I told the play, again, I try to be as open and honest as possible of like, hey, this is what we'll have for you. And they come back and they say, I'm getting offered double or triple from this team. And I said, I'm so happy for you, and you should take that because listen, this could be, and I hope it's not, this could be the most money you ever make in your life, right? And so I'm not going to sit here and make you feel bad. That's incredible. What an incredible opportunity to go make seven figures from a high level institution.
Yeah.
And I'm again with parents, with agents, with players, I will not try to outbid, right? I want players that want to be at Florida State, that believe in what we're building, and that believe we can help you long term, right? We're probably not going to outbid the top tier teams, and I'm okay with it. And they should be okay. The reality is we've signed 10 players, two returning, and I don't think we've had the highest bid on a single one of them. Actually, I know for a fact we haven't. And I tell them that. I said, I understand that you can make, in some cases, six figures more elsewhere. And the fact that you still want to be here and come be a part of what we're building and then also build for your future, it speaks volumes about what's important to you. And I think that's actually pretty cool. It's almost that bunker mentality of like, yeah, we're all in this together. You know, I know I'm one of the lowest paid coaches in the ACC. You guys are probably, roster wise, we're middle of the pack in the ACC. But let's go take out some of these big teams that are making more money. And I think that's fun.
You know what you probably won't have as much concern about is locker room potential issues with money,
Yeah,
because I think that's going to be real this year. I really
100%.
do. I think, you've got big numbers, and a lot of the numbers are sort of out there publicly where they haven't been the last couple of years. So it'll
Yep.
be interesting. I mean, in the NBA, it's different. Let's face, everybody knows the number. And, I mean, I guess there's obviously some locker room issues, but I think we're going to see chemistry is going to be more important than ever when college basketball this season. I'm sure that's what you're thinking is, hey, we may not be the most talented team, but if we're, South Carolina 2 years ago is a great example of that, what Lamont Paris did. They had unbelievable chemistry. I saw it firsthand in the Bahamas. It started, and I
Yeah.
think that went a long way. And I think that for you guys, could go a long way.
It's universal. If you have a combination of chemistry, toughness, and skill, those three things, you will have a chance at being really good. Now, you can't take away the skill and just have chemistry and toughness. You can be okay. You got to have a certain level of talent to really compete. But even that talent, and we've seen it all over, even this past season, like the two best teams to me in terms of the end, Houston and Florida, they both had a level of togetherness and toughness. And then obviously they had talent too. But even look at what Todd Golden did and Sampson did with their rosters. Like that's some highly ranked guy, but most of those guys were mid-major guys. They were older, they were tougher. Even Auburn, like their best players started at the lower levels and just proved time and time again that no, I'm good enough and I'm tough enough and we're gonna do this together. To me, that's the perfect formula with the landscape that we're in right now.
Yeah, you got to evaluate. You got to evaluate what fits for you. And again, like you said, those Florida guards, all three of them, were, I don't want to say misevaluated, but again, you look at Iona, FAU, and Belmont. That's where all three started. A lot of
Right.
people missed on them. A lot of people
Yeah.
missed on them. Um, Give me your, if you had to describe your coaching style, what will it be like? Because I don't, again, we haven't been around each other in a while.
Yeah.
How would you describe? Are you going to be fiery as hell? Are you going to be more laid? Like, how do you describe who you're going to be in the locker room and on the court?
Yeah, and I think I try to walk a fine line of enjoying this, right? There's a level of enthusiasm and energy, and our players are going to feel that. But also a level of, again, what I started with, there's going to be a level of accountability, and there's going to be a standard set every day. And if people aren't walking to that standard and upholding that standard daily, they're going to hear it, not only from me, but from the staff we put together. And I do think that mix, right? That mix is a perfect, whether in the NBA or in college, it's really tough. And I grew up around, like, Mike Brown is a serious dude. Like, he is probably the most prepared guy and imagine he's been a defensive guru in the NBA for 30 years, and I'm his defensive coordinator as a 33-year-old, right? 34-year-old. There's an intimidation, but you also have a confidence of like, no, I know what I'm doing. And everyone in the room is going to feel that. And as a former point guard, that's just come natural to me, right? That leadership and that, just like, there's a certain way to do it every day, right? There's a certain way to go through drills, a certain way to condition, a certain way to lift weights. There's a certain way to prepare and film. And our players are going to feel that, starting with how I operate every single day, right? But within that, I do like to have fun. I listen to music in our practices. There's going to be blasting music. There's going to be an environment where we work and it's serious, but also you want to be in the gym with us every day. It's not like, oh, damn, I got to go practice again. It's like, no, this is a privilege to go practice. And it should be an environment where they gravitate towards it. And it's the same way in the games. Like, there's going to be a seriousness in what we do. But if there's a big play, I'm going to be the first one high-fiving everyone, because I know as a player how contagious that is. And as a leader of this program now, everyone in the building should feel that. And I'm telling you, Jeff, and you know this, it is contagious. It is contagious on the sidelines. It's contagious with your staff. And if that's how you guys operate, your players have absolutely nowhere to hide. But like, now the standard's already set. Now we got to withhold it and uphold it every single day in the locker room.
Well, listen, appreciate you. Great catching up. It had been way too long. I know we saw each other a couple of years ago for a bit, but congrats. Really cool to be back home, and can't wait to see what you do this year at Florida State, Luke.
Jeff, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Talk